So I'm Caitlin Knack, or Katie, is what I go by. I was born with what was then called isolated non-compaction of left ventricular myocardium. Now it's typically just called non-compaction left ventricular myocardium. They basically told my parents when I was first diagnosed, she's got 3 days to 3 years of life, transplant, we're not really sure. No one really knew what, to this day, if you look it up at an American Heart Association, it's just kind of listed as one of the other rare congenital heart defects. So at that time it was unheard of. I think my parents told me I was one of 6 diagnosed at the time with this condition. So outlook wasn't promising. So they said, well, let's get her on a Make-A-Wish trip. And they asked what I wanted. And I said I wanted to meet the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. I took to it really well and my ejection fraction kind of bounced back. I did well enough with the pacemaker. We weren't too afraid of those other things because they were being managed with medication and my ejection fraction was better. So they said, let's just put a pause on the transplant. So then I was able to get through high school and graduate and go to college.
Right off the bat, I learned about, she has a heart thing. And then she kind of explained to me that she's like, the amniotic tissue, and I'm like, hey, I don't understand what you're talking about at all. I was not versed in any medical terms or I barely took vitamins,
Yeah, we were very opposites. I wanted to be a vegetarian. I was a humanitarian, all these things. And then this guy came out and he's sending me pictures of him out on a tree stand, hunting for deer. And he was just so authentically himself and did not apologize for it. And I was just so enamored with that. I was like, oh, he knows who he is. He doesn't apologize for it, but also the nicest person would give you the shirt off his back. It was the weekend of my first dress fitting. Suddenly I felt those funky beats that I felt when I was younger, but they stuck. And I remember saying to my mom, something feels a little off. But immediately it was well, we've got a pacemaker for that. The pacemaker's there. You've got a pacemaker for those arrhythmias. It must be something else. So this next coming week, I had the bachelorette party. I was gonna teach for 2 days. I was gonna get nails done. I was gonna do all that fun prep stuff that the brides do. And then I walked into school that Monday and I sat down and I felt myself go back into AFib. And I was like, oh no. By this time I'd been shocked 13 times total throughout the last couple of weeks. And he said, I can't let you go unless you're holding sinus. I can't just send you out there without it. And I was just oh boy, okay, what's the plan?
So as you can imagine, Katie was super upset. We had this big wedding. We didn't have a little wedding. We had the best, the biggest, the baddest wedding. Really good. And so we did all this planning together and we're getting everything ready for the big day. And it's you're here until your rhythms level out. And then they zapped her and it held.
Yeah. And
then they put a new rhythmic medicine in there. Things were good. Things were holding.
Yep. I was there and that's all that mattered. And so if I found out things afterwards, they're hey, this didn't go the way we were expecting it. And I was like, I don't care. I'm here. I'm marrying the love of my life. I don't care. I had been told I was basically three pennies away from qualifying for transplant status the time prior to that. So you have to meet very specific parameters. And they said sorry, dear, and I just went, oh, thank you. And every time I go back in, one of the girls will say, you're the only one I've ever heard say that they were almost relieved to hear that news. And I was because I felt so sick for so long and had so much doubt that maybe it was just in my head or something. So when someone finally was no, you're actually sick. And then Dr. C came in. She goes, well, and I was like, did you? She goes, we have a heart. And I remember feeling profound sadness at my glee, because I knew someone was living their like the worst day of their lives. Especially now that I know who my donor was and his family. Looking back on it, that part, like, yes, I get to live, but I feel really, it's the weirdest feeling. Because you're so happy and you're like, but someone else is dying for this organ. It's not a living donor. Life today is so much more full of hope. And just like possibilities. I've got like a whole post-transplant bucket list. And we've been notching things off. This summer, I'm gonna learn to water ski. We'll see. By the time this airs, we'll hopefully say I successfully water skied, or I'll be in a full body cast. So my donor's name was Matthew, and Matthew died at 19 years of age, died by suicide, and he was very passionate about hunting and being outdoors, gardening, his dogs. And so when his mom wrote to me, she was like, you guys have a lot in common, because I talked about like, I can finally walk my dog. I haven't been able to walk my dog in 5 years. I'm so excited. And I told her I was really excited. My husband taught me archery, and so I do that. And then she said, Matthew really liked to hunt. And I messaged Mark this picture of the mom's letter, and I said, well, now I have to learn how to actually hunt. So I am now certified. We have taken a gun out to the range, and I'm gonna get Matthew's heart a true good Iowa buck.
That's the plan.
That's the goal. Your story, no matter how big you think it is or how I thought mine was very little, it's a story worth telling. I know so many women who I've talked to, and they're like, oh, I feel chest pressure and I'm not breathing well. And I'm like, have you gotten an echo? And they're like, what? Why would I do that? I'm like, because you just said you have heart, you got stuff that let's do these things. And I think that so often people put others before themselves. And it's important that I like that Girl Red for Women is educating and then also giving volunteer opportunities to others. It can happen to anyone. Anyone can have heart problems at any time in their life. 1 out of every 100 people born has a congenital heart defect. It's the most common defect to be born with. And so like knowing these things like CPR and just those warning signs, especially that males and females show them differently for heart attacks and things like that. I thought I knew a lot about the heart, but just through some of the work I've done with Go Red for Women, I've actually learned a lot more. So I'd say their education efforts are like what inspire me the most.